Mr. Matthew, the last question is from my brother Bülent.
Yes,
Bülent?
Mr. Johnson, last question is, you know, in recent year, especially in after 2010-11, there are some changes in the world, especially in the Arabic world. With the recent developments, the old socialist dictatorships are tumbling, and the oppressive rulers such as Mubarak, Gaddafi, and Saddam were toppled. The Islamic world is aspiring for democracy, freedom, and this is actually in the core of Islam. How can we educate Muslims on this true understanding of Islam, which also embraces Christians and Jews as brothers and sisters as well?
What do you think the source of education should be for this? How do you think we could educate all the people?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
How do you think we can educate the Muslims the true understanding of Islam? You know, it's so, you know, it's going to embrace the Christians and Jews.
Well, I think one way, and I'm not one to really speak to that as much as to the West, but one way certainly is through dialoguing. And one thing I do, and I'll plug it, is with a great organization called Soliya, SOLIYA.net. And what they do is cross-cultural dialogues with students from the West and students from the Middle East. And I'm right in the middle of the semester now as one of the facilitators, and it's just amazing just to see how much similarities there really are, and I think everybody after the 8 weeks is so amazed to learn that we from the West or whether from the Islamic world, that we really have a lot in common, and many of them is a respect for human rights and democracy, all kinds of various freedoms. This Bush adage that they hate us because of our freedom, I mean, I think has been thoroughly discredited, and I think, like you mentioned, the Arab Spring was the main event that discredited that, and I think it's clear that people want to come out of their shells and embrace, if the West has some great values that the East might want to get a hold of, that they're willing to try, willing to topple dictators. I was in Egypt a year before Mubarak fell. It seemed impossible that he would fall. He seemed very strong, and it's just amazing how quickly ideas can spread.
Exactly. Nobody would accept this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It was not expected at all he's going to tumble down.
Right. And I just think the world's changing in communications, like the way we're able to communicate now through Skype. I mean, things like this are making it possible for people to see cultures for what they are without traveling there, even if they don't have the money to go themselves, and to learn new ideas. I mean, the internet is revolutionizing the way we think and act and engage, and there's a lot of challenges, sure, but I think that there's certainly a lot to be hopeful about, and I just hope that things continue, though, on a peaceful trajectory when it comes to change.
I think another way to educate Muslims are to remove bigotry from the Islamic cultures, because people, if they really truly believe in Islam and if they learn the core of Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then they will understand that all his life and the Quran, it states it states the brotherhood with Christians and Jewish people. But somehow the bigotry is taught among the culture, and then people are taught they are our enemies. People are all our only the Muslims should come together, but they should be from their own sect and so. What do you think, Jerry?
Well, there's a lot that can be said on this, actually, because there are a lot of traditions and sentimentality and romanticism that go along with the Muslim world. And a lot of the tradition, what we find, and I've had this discussion several times, is that we have people that they're taught that they have to read the Quran in Arabic, or they have to go to the mosque and listen to lectures or teachings in Arabic, and they don't understand the language. I mean, they may not even be able to read Arabic, but they try to read the Quran in Arabic. Yeah. And what happens when this goes on is then they're taught by one person or two people, and if those people are not teaching true Islam, then what you have is a tradition of teaching people opinion and ideas rather than what is actually in the Quran.
Exactly.
And this is and you guys know this too, this is a major problem in a lot of places in the Middle East. because tradition will trump actually education in a lot of places, and it is very fervent discussion that goes on in a lot of places over there. And when you get into tradition, there are people that are they're being basically killed and tortured and everything else over tradition, because they have we have people that will not, or they will teach, but we have people that don't understand what they're learning. So one of the big things we have there, I think, is trying to move away from this education of it, or tradition, that you have to learn in a certain way. You have to do this a certain way, or it's not true. I have in front of me, I have a transcribed Quran that is in English and in Arabic, and I can read it and understand it. And if I have questions, I can ask somebody. But I don't have to go to somebody and say, "Can you teach me what this means?" Because I can read it right there. I can look things up. I can, and
Yes.
I have ways to find out exactly what the Quran says. And I also, we need to educate people in history and science and art and math, microbiology. There's so many things that people need to learn to really understand these religions, whether it be Judaism, Christian, or Islam. People need to be able to have that education to be able to learn for themselves without having to be taught everything.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is from this show we can really conclude that people should be educated for the aim of the real Quran and the life of Prophet Muhammad, and so that people will be more with love to each other, with respect to each other, and they will brotherly and sisterly they will be all love. Mr. Matthew, thank you for attending our show. This was all our questions. We would like to see you again in the coming shows. We really enjoyed the time with you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you as well.
Jerry, it was nice to see you again. See you next week. Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you guys too, and nice pleasure to meet you, Mr. Johnson. Maybe someday I can see you on my radio shows.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, pleasure.
Dear guests, thank you for everything and for attending to our show. This is the end of our program.